Keys to the Commonwealth, a podcast where we share the real stories of local community members who are using real estate to build personal wealth, along with tips and tricks from professionals across the industry. And now, your host, Landry Fields.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. We got a different conversation today, which I am excited about. As you know, work a lot with people buying real estate or people purchasing new homes or building homes each and every day as an insurance advisor. And I'm pleased for today's guest. He is a sales counselor and coach with Fischer Homes in Louisville, Kentucky, and has been with him for 3 years, of which he's been on his own for 2 years on the sales side and quickly reached the $25 million in sales mark, which is awesome. Born and raised near Napierville, Illinois, which is in the Chicago area, he received his degree from the University of Kentucky and now resides in Mount Washington, Kentucky, and is married to his beautiful bride, Sydni. I'm pleased to welcome David Burton to the Keys to the Commonwealth studio. David, thanks for coming on the show, man.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So I appreciate you making the drive over here to the studio. We're going to talk all things new home buying today, or building, new home building, I should say, which definitely, I think a lot of people thought, I could never buy a new build home sometimes in some areas, but it's definitely, with the way the market has been, probably become much more of a viable or attractive option in that sense. So we'll definitely have you speak to that. But before we get to that, hop back in the DeLorean like we start every episode and kind of tell me, how did you get into working with Fischer Homes, real estate, new home building, and construction?
Yeah, so I was in a business fraternity at UK, and I met the head of HR of Fischer through that fraternity, and then it just so happened that I reconnected with her at a career fair event, and they were pretty tenacious with me, and it seems like they were, having a lot of fun and treating employees pretty well, so I kind of gravitated towards that. I don't know if I ever wanted to be sales, but now that I'm in it, I've really enjoyed it. And obviously, real estate's really interesting and a way to build wealth and kind of grow my personal self. So it's been pretty fun.
Getting into real estate at your age, too, is obviously, who knows where that's going to lead to in the next a couple of decades. But that's pretty awesome to get into it as early as you have. Obviously, I'm mid-30s, and I've just now ventured into it myself. So it's been cool. So what was that transition like as far as learning the business with Fischer, or I guess before we talk about that, just talk about a little bit about Fischer. So what is Fischer? I know they're a bigger name, obviously, they're in that Louisville area.
For sure.
Than people here in the Lexington area might not know or be as familiar with them. But speak to a bit about who they are.
Yeah, so Fischer is one of the largest privately owned home builders, which is really important to me because even the son of Henry and Elaine Fischer, who originally started the company in 1980, is still a chairman of Fischer. So they really have some big family values. And in Louisville, we are the largest home builder. We're the largest home builder in a couple different markets, Burton, Kentucky, Dayton, I think at this point we are as well. We're also in Atlanta, Indianapolis, St. Louis. I'm sure I'm going to forget some. But, we're kind of picky and choosy about where we want to be. Right now, Louisville is starting to be one of the bigger markets, so that's pretty exciting.
And now, it didn't originally start out of Louisville, right?
Correct.
It's originally out of Northern Kentucky area.
Yep, Henry and Elaine Fischer first drew up plans in 1980 in their garage. So that was in Northern Kentucky and Erlanger.
Everybody's got a business garage story, it seems like, but mine was my basement. Maybe it's the basement or the garage, one of the two, depending on it. But that's awesome. Yeah. So, what are they as far as private homes? As far as talk to me through what you all offer in that sense, as far as the size, scope, where locations. Obviously, we say Louisville, but it's really more meaning the surrounding suburbs and counties. Yeah. As Louisville is quickly expanding well beyond just the Jefferson County area.
Right. So we are primarily outside of 265, if you are familiar with Louisville. So right now we do majority single-family homes. We're starting to get into the paired patio, so like the duplex-style homes, since that's getting more popular as land becomes a little more scarce. So that's definitely a way to get more people in more houses. Right now we're starting, around the $250 price point range, but that's as of today. So how the housing market works, and I'm sure that might not be accurate by the time this is live. But we have up to 7,000 square feet down to 1,200 square foot. The first home I bought and built was through Fischer, and it was 1,600 square foot. One of the smaller plans, but I still love it, and the build quality speaks for itself. So I've been pretty happy with it, even on the much smaller side of Fischer.
Yeah. And now, as far as you guys are typically purchasing land, and so somebody comes in and wants to do it. They're not necessarily saying, I've got this piece of land. I want to build a house on it. It's usually more like you guys are taking it from start to finish. Here's location areas or options. here's house plans options, feature options, and so forth, and then you guys kind of hold the contract, the deed, the insurance, and you do everything until the point where it's completed, and then you do the final sale and change the title at that point. Is that correct?
That is correct. Some builders work differently, but Fischer, we try to keep everything pretty locked down. We just believe that it helps the customer more than anything. Just keep maintaining, expectations and things are always kept straight. And, if you build on a private piece of land, there's things that we can't really control, and we're just trying to limit those things.
Sure. Now, do you guys do do you guys do financing as well for sellers, or is that all just through third-party mortgage lenders and so forth?
We do offer financing. We're partnered with Victory Mortgage.
Okay.
So everybody that buys a house has to at least pre-qualify with them. But if you have a brother or a buddy that does lending, we're not going to take you away from them. So that's just something that we require, just a pre-qual through. We do not have to fully finance through them. The only thing that we do require is just a title and the closing agency.
Okay. And absolutely, the goal of this podcast is a lot talking about just building wealth through real estate and so forth. And so that scope has changed a lot, obviously, since COVID,
Sure.
and ramped up in a large capacity and so forth. And there's a lot of people out there that I think that are, I can't find a home, or they're all just going for cash. It's kind of what I was referencing at the beginning. That's going for just cash offers and so forth. So, and talk about somebody that might be looking. It really more than ever, owning a home is on its own outright just by having a home that you are, you're obviously getting a mortgage on, but owning and having a title on a home and not renting is just an extra step up in general, more so than it's ever has been as far as your wealth, as far as the longevity of your lifetime. So, right. Talk to me a little bit about especially how that opportunity has changed and how it's such a viable opportunity maybe on building a house type of thing in a market where it's so hard to buy existing houses.
Yeah, the majority of people I do meet come in and, their experience with real estate is, I need to get a realtor, I need to find a used home, I need to look on Zillow, I need to check out everything, under the sun. And a lot of people think that home building is kind of a pipe dream. And recently that's really not been that way. As you said, the full cash offers, even in just Mount Washington where I live right now, I meet people that are like, I just lost on a house because they offered $30,000 more than asking, full cash. And that's just insane. It's just really hard to keep up, especially for those first time homeowners. Yeah. So something really nice that building does is you kind of set your own price. You pick where you want to be, you pick your floor plan, and your entry cost might look a little higher, but by the time you're looking at your $350,000 house, your used house that's on sale right now for $320,000 might go for that anyways. So there's a lot of clarity in new building, I think, compared to kind of the market the way that it is right now. In Louisville specifically, there's, I think, 800 homes listed right now, which is about a month supply when you typically want a 6-month supply. Right. So just the supply is really low. So that really provides an opportunity for new builds. And
as we were kind of talking before here off air, that's not going to be slowing down, obviously.
No, not at all.
We've got more people moving to the area than ever before. We've got and it's not a housing bubble in the sense that I saw some stats where the pre-qualification aspects are so much more difficult, or are a lot more difficult than they were pre-bubble back in 2008 and stuff like that, when they were kind of qualifying anyone and everyone. There was a whole lot more foreclosures happening back then. That's not the case now, as well as like you were kind of pointing out to here, the amount of homes on the market for sale. As far as that time period, usually you want it like at least 6 months, and it's down, it's a month supply typically, and that's kind of where it's hovered for the most part since COVID in a lot of ways. So building a new house, I think a lot of people are starting to realize maybe, hey, this is an option. So back to, like you said, no surprises. Talk to me about more or less, obviously, this is obviously an ongoing fluid change of prices as far as materials and all those things that have happened with, supply chains and so forth. So, do you guys kind of lock it in on that price? And is that how you all kind of deal with that type of thing? Or how do you kind of deal with that is what I'm getting. Obviously, material is always fluctuating drastically these days and so forth.
Yeah, and I can speak towards Fischer, and maybe not every builder does it this way, but something I do appreciate about the way Fischer does it is that you're locked at the time of contract. So, you meet with me, we figure out your floor plan, we figure out your features, things like that. Once you sign on that deal, your price is not going up unless you choose to add something later that costs more. Let's say you go from, laminate countertops to solid surface countertops. Obviously, that's going to increase your price point. But throughout your build time, your 6-8 month build time, depending on how long it is, the price on your house will go up. That's just the way that it has been, the way that, as you said, it will be. But that's something that's nice is, When I first built my home with Fischer, I signed for X amount. By the time I closed, we had 6 price increases for XYZ, and those are laid out to the customers beforehand. We try to give them a warning, like, it's May right now. June 1st, we're going to have a price increase, for sure. I know that already.
Yeah.
So I can tell people that. If you sign right now for $300, your house on June 1st will be $305. If you sign for $300, $5,000 equity right there. So that's been pretty cool about the way the Fischer does it. Again, not sure that that's the way other people do it, but it's been pretty cool to at least share that with customers as they're building too. As a build time, I think that's something that turns people off about building is having to wait for it. But I think that really can be a benefit, especially in this market where things are so up in the air. You move into your house and you have $20,000 worth of equity and you haven't even closed yet. So that's been pretty cool.
That is awesome. That's such a cool thing to think about there. And then as far as build time, was that what you said? You said 6 to 9 months. Is that usually kind of the average time frame as far as start to finish?
Yeah, Fischer can put up a home pretty quick. As far as our actual build, we look at about 6 months, but we have to add in to the design portion of that, the permitting portion of that, the licensing, the titling, things like that. So, government has kind of slowed down a little bit with COVID as well. So once Fischer gets their hands on it and we get all their permits back, we can typically build a home in about 6 months, depending on, if we have a basement, if 3,000 square foot house is going to build a little slower than a 1,200 square foot home. So, depending on XYZ, but we could usually quote about 9 months total.
So as material kind of plateaued a bit, at least, or obviously, I know that's probably hard to answer, but what it really has it kind of looked like. Obviously, I knew early on you went to the hardware store and you immediately saw just lumber and everything. But I'm sure probably like a lot of other areas in the country or other areas of everyday life, it seems like it hit different industries at different times based upon different supply chain scenarios or chip shortages or all this stuff like that. So what have you guys kind of been seeing in that side as far as material?
I think a lot of people do think about lumber right away because you see that and your home is built out of it. It's funny, I had people when lumber went back down a little bit, they were like, hey, what's going on with the cost of my house? And I was like, I'm glad you noticed that, but conduit right now is 4 times what it was 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? So it seems like every time I say, yeah, this is down, the next thing goes up.
Right.
Right now too, it's supply chain delays as well. So it's really related to labor too. I know right now windows are just, you can't get a window. And I'm sure builders listening to this are going to bash their heads in because they're like, yep, we can't get windows right now. So, yeah, it's really,
it's always supply chain delays. Something at this point.
Right. It's something no matter what. And
have there definitely been things that have come down? Obviously, there's been an inflation started as a whole, so it's not like it's ever going to be COVID type of thing probably. But, have things definitely dropped down, like lumber? I don't even know. Has lumber dropped down at this point as well or whatnot?
It's not at the peak that it was you've seen in the last year or so. But, if I said the lumber cost today compared to 3 years ago, it's probably 3 times what it was. But it's maybe not as much as it was 8 months ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
So, I know I just got my deck quoted and it was $14,000 or something insane. So it's just like, okay, I won't be having a deck for a little bit, but that is kind of nice with building is just, we're using a lot of lumber to build your house and you can actually lock in a price. So good and bad.
And again, back to like your earlier point about you can start a house, build new, not have to worry about trying to have fighting offers of cash offers and so forth. And then like you kind of mentioned, more than likely have immediate equity in that house as soon as you buy it, as far as the worth of what it ends up being at the end of the day, 6 to 9 months later after the process. That's hard to beat, in that sense.
It's funny that you say, too, we know that it's not going down, and it just seems like there's nowhere to go but down, but it's just you're seeing the trajectory, you're seeing, everything economics is driven by supply and demand, and there's still no supply. So there's nothing we can do but go up. You see interest rates going up right now, but people are still buying. Because it's the way to build wealth. It's the way to, because if your mortgage goes up, your rent is also going up. So just the cost of living in general is going up. So you might as well build your own wealth rather than build somebody else's.
Right. Now, you guys said, and you got a lot of different markets in kind of the major cities. I assume those are always in like the growing suburb areas with where people are wanting to kind of grow and expand out, and they're not wanting to be necessarily always in the downtown areas of these cities anymore and so forth. So, but you mentioned something about duplexes and adding that, and I've thought about that, been very curious about that too, as a way for, I think it's hard with Lexington. There's not really zoning wise, and we're not going to get into a conversation about zoning by any means here, but there's not a lot of opportunities in Lexington as far as adding duplexes or building duplexes that I think there are in some of the surrounding counties or other areas that are more suburbs away from the downtown zip code type of areas. So, I mean, talk to me a little bit about the duplex side of things as far as the opportunity, because, I mean, that's another opportunity to have even more wealth or offset a lot of that payment right away, as I think we could definitely see a growth of duplex type of scenarios or owner-owned and financed duplexes or other stuff like that.
For sure, and I think it's a great way to get into something you own that may not be at the high cost of a single-family home right away. You know, I'd hop into a duplex for a little bit, build your equity in it, and then by the time you're able to sell that duplex, now you have the equity saved up that you can use to help you buy that dream single-family home or that next step type thing.
Yeah.
It's really just seems like just a good opportunity to just avoid renting no matter what it is, at least you own it.
Yeah.
And on the investment side of things, I know we're not super supposed to sell straight up to investors, but it is definitely the opportunity for, as you said, you've kind of hopped onto the duplex train, and it's really a good opportunity. And even for, you know, the people you're renting to, I don't know that's, you know, you can save them a little bit of rent from these major apartment complexes, and at least they have a little bit of, you know, yard and a driveway and things like that if need be.
Some more privacy, some more feeling of ownership in some respects.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. Now, I mean, back to kind of Kentucky specifically, I mean, what are some of those areas you guys are seeing as far as the growth and so forth? Obviously, Louisville's growing just as much as Fayette County and so forth, and Lexington areas, but, and, you know, we got E-Town over there closer to you and all this. So talk to me a little bit just like the growth and what's happening in kind of that region and so forth.
So you're seeing the big companies starting up factories and things like E-Town doing some revamping in places like Bardstown. Yeah. I know LaGrange up in Oldham County, a suburb of Louisville, just got, you know, some show on HGTVs revamping that whole town. So you're seeing this kind of suburban push. I know that, you know, populations are supposed to grow. Jefferson County last year grew a little bit, but then you're seeing 10+% growth in places like Shelby County, Oldham County, Bullitt County, the surrounding counties of Jefferson and Louisville. So that's kind of what Fischer tries to hit too, is you're moving outside of Jefferson County. We want to put you in kind of this suburbia of outside of Jefferson County when you're moving out.
I mean, because I don't think I realized, I mean, because we're talking about suburbia, we think here, there's so much of the stigma in Lexington of like, oh, if you're a 30-minute drive from Lexington, you're like, so almost like it's too far here. But that's obviously not necessarily the mindset there. Where, I mean, E-Town, I don't think I ever really realized that E-Town's only like 45 minutes from downtown, if that. Yeah. And so you got a little bit more of a wider footprint to work with that people are willing to move to. And then Shelbyville is a big one too, right? As far as like that, you can clearly see that one just traveling back and forth to Louisville or Lexington right there, how much it's grown, how much they've added there in the last 10 years itself. Yeah. So.
And obviously the push towards these suburban places with COVID and working from home and things like that, you know, you're trying to get away from the hustle and bustle of city noise, and if you can actually just still work your job that you're comfortable with, but now you can get yourself, as you said before, a little more privacy, a little more land, a little more sense of ownership. That seems to be happening kind of right before us. And I mean, I moved from Westport Road, if people are familiar with Louisville, right where everything is, near the Summit, near all the shops. I was in this little 700 square foot apartment, 5 steps from Target. My wife loved it. But we moved it to Mount Washington. It was definitely an adjustment. Now we're 25 minutes from things, but I still have my Kroger 4 minutes away. I still have 10 fast food options 5 minutes away. So I think once it actually happens, it just gives you a little more sense of like, I mean, I walk outside, it's quiet. I think my dad came from Chicago and he was like, wow, it's really quiet down here. This is nice. So I think it is definitely a mindset shift, kind of getting away from the urban options, but I think that most people are seeming to enjoy it, especially now with the COVID.
I tend to agree. I mean, I think there was just people liked living in the cities, you know, especially when you work in careers and stuff like that, and you didn't spend all your waking moments in your apartment. You didn't care as much about where that was exactly. Right. But then obviously you're now spending the majority of your time with a lot of careers now working from home, and you're like, this apartment's small and I'm getting claustrophobic, and, you know, why do I go? You're seeing the quality of life and how it just has a different feeling, even though it's maybe 30, 45 minutes away. But like I said, it's more quiet, more. Right. There's still all the amenities and stuff like that, unless you're, you know, 21 years old and still wanting to like party at bars or something like that. But you know, you get married, that things change.
Home. You're good.
Say what?
An Uber home. You're good.
An Uber home.
Yeah. Just Uber will cost a little more.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that sounds pleasant for somebody for a while, but then, like anything, it probably gets old. And coming back to something that's your own and you can put pride in. But like you talked about, the whole goal of this podcast is like the idea of growing wealth and how it's such a simple step. Well, simple, is not the word I meant there, but it's such a simple concept as far as a step, I guess is what I'm trying to get at as far as better preparing ourselves for just what the future has. I'm mid-30s, you're probably mid-20s or so. And then the fact that I'm like, I can't rely on the government for my own retirement here, right? Like I got to make my own way here. I've got to do all I can, work like heck to kind of make sure I'm not on the side of the road. My kids are taken care of and so forth. So to that sentiment, I think this is one of the biggest moves, and either house hacking or like we've talked about on the show, or buying this viable option people don't know about buying a home that's a new build like you're talking about, or a duplex side of things. So
yeah, and even if you're not trying to dive head first and I need to buy 3 duplexes like you have recently, which is awesome. I mean, that's definitely a way that you're seeing it's popular now, and it's definitely been working out. I don't know if I have the guts to do that. I mean, as you said, mid-20s, but I did buy my first house at 22, and I have seen, $80,000 in equity in the last 2.5 years because of it. So, it's more subtle way to build wealth, but it's still definitely there. And I think more so just buying the house in general, and new construction to me is almost the safer bet, because you're seeing these places grow right in front of your eyes. You're part of that growth. So as
there's so much land still in America. Like, we get this idea like there's no more land. I mean, you just got to move out a little bit further, but there's plenty of land in that sense. And we have to be cautious and say we can't expect this level of growth in equity to continue at this pace for sure.
Absolutely.
But I definitely think that's the market. I think most people would agree probably the market is at least, 5 to 10 years probably, maybe 5 or at least type of thing, as far as before it really really slows down. It's going to take a while. It's not going to be a quick drop in. It was a quick ramp up. It'll probably be a slow decrease over time potentially in that sense. It's not going to be a rapid decrease yet. There's always things.
Right. Historically it increases.
Right.
You see these fluctuations, but my grandparents telling me I bought my first house for $45,000. And that house now, no matter what part of town it is, it's worth $150 at least. Yeah. You know what I mean? So real estate kind of is that safe bet, and you see these little dips, and I think people are expecting that soon. I would not say that because, again, the supply is just so low. But even if it does, it's gonna have to go back up. Land is available, but there's not unlimited of it, so it has to go back up.
And speaking back to your Louisville market area, again, obviously you guys are all in a lot of different cities across kind of the central, south, and north, eastern side of the U.S. here. Yep. But like you said, the growth in a lot of those counties and so forth that you're seeing, would you say like over 10% growth type of thing, or you're not really seeing a decrease in any of the counties? So that's an attest to people moving to the state of Kentucky.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I know, being from Chicago, my dad came to visit me, and we were talking about our mortgage payments. And, Illinois, you can say what you want to say about it, but I know he pays a whole lot more in property tax than I do, and he was telling me how nice it would be to live in Kentucky. So I was like, I got a guy.
How big is, what square footage is the house?
On my house?
Yeah, his house.
His is 3,000 square feet. But even a 3,000 square foot.
It's like a mortgage payment from what we were talking about earlier off air.
Oh yeah, I
think unreal.
Over $1,000 a month just in tax. And I'm just like, Dad, that's like my mortgage payment. Period.
Yeah. Needless to say, I don't think I would be buying real estate in major cities that but in bigger cities that people want to move to a better quality of life, especially in Kentucky.
Absolutely.
It's a hidden under the radar thing. How did you? Back to the side story. How did you end up at UK if you grew up in the Chicago area then?
My mom kind of has bounced around jobs, so she's very casino related. So she's HR in casinos. So she got switched to the Lawrenceburg, Indiana property, but ended up living in Florence. Okay. I was a big basketball fan. Yeah. And I got in-state at Kentucky, so I was like, hey, Anthony Davis went over here. Let's check that school out. That's it. Okay. I'm a pretty simple guy.
A few other people I know from Chicago, it was kind of the basketball related side of things that brought me here too when I was for UK. One of my good friends that moved here was here for college and then recently moved back. That's funny. Yeah. So no real estate investment that you have yet outside of just your personal home at this point, right?
So yeah, I have the personal home, and my wife and I have tossed back and forth the idea of renting that once we move.
Yeah.
We're starting to build on our next house, so it's still kind of up in the air and something we're decided yet. But we just, with the property value increase the way that it has, it's definitely in the cards.
Not to put you on the spot, I mean, are there any crazy stories or things in the home buying? Not to scare people away, but just kind of like anything stick out to you as far as this was crazy or this is really cool in your time with Fischer as far as that goes?
I will show my ignorance here because I bought my first house and it was a build. So I'm buying my second house, also a build. Okay. So that's my very limited scope of experience. But my experience has been, because I'm on both sides of it too. You know, I'm the guy that's selling, but I'm also now the guy, since you're talking to me, the guy that's buying. I think it's pretty cool the way that Fischer keeps you updated. I know I've heard a lot of stories about people like, you know, you build a house and then it's like, yeah, we'll talk to you when it's done. Something that we do is we'll update you every single week. You have 4 to 5 meetings during the build time with our construction team to talk you through everything. So that was pretty cool because I am not a handy guy whatsoever. And homeowning was a little bit of a jump for me. I'm being a non-handyman. But them talking you through it and showing you like, hey, this is what your rough mechanicals look like. You know, what the heck is that? They'll explain that right to you. You know what I mean? That's their job, is to explain to somebody that doesn't know anything, everything. Yeah. So it's pretty cool to kind of walk through it with them. My buddy who's buying a used home too, I mean, you just see it as you move in as well. It's just you kind of jump in and you get yourself in there, and he's not a handy guy either, but.
And when you build a new home, there's usually much less that can go wrong immediately. As anyone who's attested to buying a used home, there's always a project or something that needs fixed or done or updated that you don't. I mean, I'm sure there is some things like that. Oh, we'd like to do this, but there's not necessarily probably near the headache or that weight of trying to do some stuff or update the house like there is when you buy a new home that's just been built.
Yeah, it was funny. My dad came and helped me put in an outlet because that's how new I was to this. And I could tell him exactly what was behind that wall, whereas his home that was built 50 years ago, he was like, I think I ran into some insulation that is not up to code anymore and this and that. So when we did mine, it took us about 20 minutes rather than the hour and a half that it took for him. And
he doesn't have a Sears home, does he?
A what? A Sears home? No, he does not.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
I do.
We've got one of our... If anybody doesn't know, I learned about it in college, and maybe for the younger crowd listening to this, they don't know. But my buddy, it was, like I said, that was in Chicago. I remember going up there when we were at his mom's house, and they were talking about how there's this Sears house. I was like the store Sears? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm sure, again, older generation knows about this. Younger generation, especially in his area, had probably no clue that you used to be able to go and buy a house off of the Sears catalog, and it would show up, and I guess you'd hire a contractor to put it together or something like that. But it was a house that you bought out of the Sears catalog. Can't do that anymore.
I wouldn't be very good at that.
That just concept still blows my mind. I mean, it's still fascinating. I just want to see an old clip of a Sears catalog, like what that looked like in the catalog type of thing.
What if those are still standing?
Yeah.
Probably not.
No, I mean, they're still standing up there.
I know.
Yeah, you know. What are some of your professional or kind of personal goals you're kind of working on for 2022?
Ooh, I just recently became a coach at Fischer. My first trainee just passed his exam, so Fischer's training is pretty intuitive. So he's been sitting with me for about 3 months, kind of teaching him the ropes, and then from here he kind of goes out. But I'm still next to him, kind of helping him do things on his own, but he's still not thrown into the fire selling by himself. So he just passed that initial part, so I'm pretty proud of that. He's a killer. Shout out, Michael.
There you go.
But that's been pretty cool because I really do enjoy training people and seeing that kind of next generation grow.
Is there still a lot of growth opportunities as far as career options with Fischer around?
Oh, my goodness, yes. We are trying to hire left and right. I mean, we are starting, even now I know of 6 new subdivisions that are opening in the next 3 months. And we got to get salespeople in there. We got to get construction people in there. We got, so... Yeah, I think just like anybody, Fischer.
Opportunities everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's not hard to find opportunity.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Any interesting hobbies or side hustles?
Oh, I don't know how much I want to share here. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a big car guy, and I'm a drummer. I just recently made the switch to electric cars. I don't know how I feel about it because I came from my manual sports cars.
Right.
So it's a little
that
strange.
Is interesting being a car guy and switching to an electric car there.
I like how fast it was.
Do you like it? I mean, no regrets.
I love it. I need to get like a little dinky Miata that I can actually
just so you can
rip through
hear
the
like
gears.
you can hear like this loud motor thing, or maybe you could just play an audio somehow. Like you'd link. That's what they need to do with like Teslas and stuff, and just have this like optional for the sport one where like you can hear some kind of audible muffler sound that they just play through the speakers or something.
I'm sure there's something like that, but I definitely know of a fart noise that comes through the speaker. So Elon Musk has his priorities.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know about that.
Really?
I'm waiting for one of those electric trucks that come out one day.
Those are sweet.
I feel like that's an oxymoron as a man, but I mean, again, just give me a little like a muffler sound through the speakers, and I won't know the difference. And
I think you'll like it when you get it.
My wife will think I'm that much more handsome or hot if I can get a truck.
Right.
That's what I'm told.
That's why I bought mine. No other reason.
There you go. What are something as far as your trips that you guys have gone on? Any good trips you guys have been on, or places that you'd like to visit or want to visit between you and Sydney?
We recently went on our 2-year anniversary trip. We went out west, so we flew into Vegas, stayed the night in Vegas. Okay. Being the casino family that I am, I enjoyed that. And then we hit some national parks over there. We rented out a car that wasn't electric, so that was pretty fun. And ripped around some national parks, and it was pretty cool. Nice.
What's your favorite restaurant date night places around either Mount Washington, Louisville, or whatnot?
Hey, if you're in Mount Washington, little food truck in Old Mount Washington called Sissy's Tacos.
Okay.
Yeah, you look at me a little skeptical.
No. What is it about Sissy's Tacos?
They're just great tacos.
They're just great tacos.
I mean, a food truck taco, can you beat it?
Yeah, you really can't. They're always different. I don't know what it is. They're always different. I guess that's why they call it street tacos, right?
That's right. Yeah, a good street taco can't be beat.
I never get tacos when I go to Mexican. But if I go, because I like street tacos, type of thing. And they're just always different.
Okay.
I don't know.
That makes sense. If you like actual Mexican, you can just go to Gustavo's in Louisville. And Louisville people know about that one.
Yeah. Last question here. As far as Kentucky, obviously you weren't born and raised here, but what's your favorite thing about Kentucky, or if people are moving to the area or visiting you, that you kind of show them or tell them or whatnot?
Hey, man, I met my wife here. Does that count? I got to say that counts. Keep my marriage, right?
She's from Kentucky?
No, she's from West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
But I met her here.
But you met her here.
Right?
Yeah. But, I mean, I haven't been in the state for many years now. I mean, what do you like about it compared to Chicago or other places you've been in?
I think Southern hospitality is a real thing that maybe if you grew up here, you don't know about. But being from Chicago, moving down here, it's actually real. It's pretty dope.
Just the niceness, the people.
People are much nicer here. Yeah. And also, the first time I ever went to a Chick-fil-A was in Kentucky, so maybe that has to do with my Southern hospitality answer.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, cool. If anybody wanted to kind of contact you as far as just general questions about new home, or if they were interested in either working for Fischer or looking at jobs, or buying or purchasing a home in some of the areas, like you said, you've got places all around the country.
Absolutely.
Or even the Louisville area, where can they reach out and kind of ask you about the
phone or email is always good for me. I'm a sales guy, so my phone's always on. 630-618-6103 is the phone number. That's a Chicago number for you, and my email is pretty easy. It's dburton@fischerhomes.com. So I'm always happy to answer questions, even if you're not interested in really anything and just want to know more. I'm happy to answer.
Perfect. David, I appreciate you coming on the show today, and make sure everybody subscribe to the podcast, and we'll catch you back here next week on another episode of Keys to the Commonwealth podcast.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry@novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.